I never imagined my daughter would give away our family home, leaving me heartbroken and alone. I still hear the echo of the front door slamming. The sound ricocheted off the walls, a testament to the chaos that had just unfolded. My hands trembled as I stood frozen in the living room. The scent of my mom's baked cookies lingered in the air, mingling with the bitter taste of betrayal that filled my mouth. This was home. Yet, it felt like a stranger now. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The phone call that shattered my world. She had taken a breath, the simple act, but it felt like a gasp for life. "Mom, I did it. I gave it away," she said, her voice hollow, echoing mine from a past I now feared. My heart raced. Fear crept in, clenching my chest like a vice. I could barely form words. "What do you mean you gave it away?" The words came out shaky, as if they were too heavy to carry. I thought of all the laughter shared in that house, the Christmas mornings, the late-night talks, the arguments over trivial things that now seemed so small. The memories flooded back, a river of emotions. I glanced towards the family portrait hanging on the wall. We looked so happy, so naive. Emma had always been the dreamer. She was never satisfied with the ordinary, always searching for something greater. Perhaps that search had led her to make this reckless choice. I never thought my sweet girl would cross a line that twisted my gut. I could hear echoes of my father's laughter bouncing off the creaky floorboards, and my late husband's warmth enveloped us during hard times. Hadn't they laid a foundation here, in this space we called home? Visions of my daughter swirled in my mind, her soft face and wild curls. I could still feel her tiny hand in mine during tricky moments. She was the sunshine that brightened my darkest days. But now that brightness felt like a distant memory, swallowed by the shadows of deception. The people she called friends began to drift in and out, these faces both familiar and strange. Each came with smiles that felt too wide and eyes that held secrets they wouldn't share. I recoiled. I expected warmth, support, but all I sensed was an undercurrent of suspicion, a tension bubbling below the surface. What had I missed? As the sunset bathed the room in a crimson glow, I felt an odd chill. It wasn't just the absence of my daughter, it was the foreshadowing of things I couldn't quite grasp. A whispering dread. Was the house given away, or had I lost Emma too? Grief reinforced my silence. What could I say that would make it okay? But what could I do to retrieve the pieces of my shattered life? And then, an unexpected knock at the door shattered the stillness. The rhythm echoed through me. Who could it be? My heart stuttered with apprehension as I wiped my tears. Peeking through the window, I spotted a shadowy figure. Familiar yet distorted. My breath hitched. Why were they here? I stood there, paralyzed, caught between fear and yearning. Would they bring answers or deepen the chasm? Anxiety twisted in my gut. I leaned against the wall, the weight of uncertainty heavy. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The knock came again, more insistent this time, as if it demanded a response. My heart raced, a drumbeat of dread with each reverberation. I swallowed hard and took a step back from the door, willing myself to think clearly. Was this a friendly face? Or someone seeking to exploit my vulnerability? I didn't want to face another confrontation, another layer of pain. But the presence outside felt oddly familiar, and despite the gnawing hesitation, I slowly opened the door. There she stood, like a specter from my past, Maggie, my dear friend from years ago, her once vibrant spirit now dimmed. We shared so many moments, laughter echoing in these once hallowed halls, our children growing crazy together in the backyard, summers stretching long and infinite. She had always understood my struggles, and yet, an awkward silence hung between us now. Maggie, I managed, though my voice cracked. I heard, she said softly, her pity spilling out like an unwanted gift. I came to see how you are. I drew in a breath, unsure how to respond to her kindness that felt so heavy with condescension. I don't need pity, I said, anger flashing in my chest. Not now. Not from you. I'm not here to pity you. "I'm here to offer help," she insisted, her eyes steady against my storm. I know it must be so hard seeing everything slip away. At that moment the anger melted just a little, exposing vulnerability. "She didn't even talk to me, Maggie. She just did it." "I don't understand." Maggie stepped forward, her hand reaching gently for mine. "Maybe she felt like she had no choice," she murmured. The warmth of her touch pulled me in, grounding me to the moment and reminding me that I wasn't wholly alone. Sometimes our children choose paths we don't understand. It doesn't make them wrong. It just makes us lost. Tears stung my eyes as I recalled the thousands of conversations we had shared just like this in a time that felt so far removed. Sharing hopes, dreams, and fears was easy then, but now with the shadows of betrayal lingering, every word felt like a lump in my throat. "What's the point of helping if they just walk away?" I said, my voice trembling. Maggie squeezed my hand tighter. "Maybe the point is to find a way back. To reconnect. You need to talk to her." An unsettling thought curled around my mind. What if there was no way back? What if Emma had chosen to cut her ties completely? I shivered, a deep chill creeping through me as a sob threatened to escape. But Maggie didn't let go. She simply stood there, wavering between hope and despair. "Can I come in?" she finally asked, her voice laced with unease. It took me a moment, but I stepped aside, allowing her to cross the threshold into the ghost of our shared past. The light inside felt muted and distant. Everything was the same yet forever altered. As she set her bag down, I scanned the room, awash in memories mixed with sorrow, the empty frames lining the walls, the table minus the morning chaos. I could almost hear the laughter of my daughter and her friends ringing through the air, but it felt like a dream slipping through my fingers. "I brought some dinner," Maggie said quietly, pulling out containers from her bag. The familiar smells we used to share filled the air, an unexpected warmth cracking the ice encasing my heart. "Let's have a meal and talk." I hesitated, unsure if I could even eat. How could I enjoy a meal when my entire world was crumbling? But as I sat at the table opposite her, the simplest of acts, sharing a meal, provided a flicker of comfort. In between bites, we talked about nothing and everything, the laughter strained but genuine. We brushed the surface of our lives, avoiding the shadow of Emma's choice, the silence heavy. Yet, an invisible thread tied us, drawing hope from the warmth of companionship. As Maggie listened to my broken pieces and mended them in small ways with her laughter, the hours felt like nothing more than moments encapsulated in time, until my phone buzzed, its shrill scream pulling me out of the fragile solace. I glanced down, heart plunging like a stone. An unknown number. "Just answer it," Maggie urged gently, her hand resting on mine, her calm strength urging me. As I swiped to answer, a hesitant voice filled the space. My daughter's voice, wavering and small. "Mom, it's me." A whirlpool of emotions churned inside me. Rage and longing intermingled. "Emma?" I asked, my heart racing again. "I need to talk," she said. And with those simple words, the world around me evaporated into silence. I looked at Maggie, the urgency of the moment dawning on us both. "Are you at home?" Emma's voice trembled, yet beneath it, I caught a whisper of vulnerability that mirrored my own. "Yes," I replied, barely above a whisper, the fear and hope crashing against one another in a deluge. "Can I come back?" I have to explain. The door to our past had creaked open, but what would it reveal? Could I find it within myself to let her back in? I couldn't move. My heart thudded in my chest like a desperate drum call, and yet I was anchored to my seat as if gravity had doubled down on me. This was Emma, the girl I had raised, loved, and fought for. The thought of her standing at my door, her voice trembling with the weight of what she had done, filled me with a turbulence of longing and resentment. "I don't know, Emma," I finally managed to say, my voice thick with emotions I was struggling to process. I glanced at Maggie, who sat poised, her eyes fixed on me. She squeezed my hand tighter as if to offer strength in the face of my fear. "Please, Mom," Emma pressed, her tone anxious. "I need you to understand. I need to explain everything. Just 5 minutes, please." What could she possibly say that would unravel the chaos of this situation? How could I let her back in when she had been the architect of my heartbreak? I wanted to scream, to cry, to throw things. But I also wanted to throw open the door, scoop her up in my arms, and tell her that everything would be okay. I was drowning in an ocean of conflicting feelings, and I needed a lifeline. "She needs you," Maggie whispered, her voice like a gentle breeze against my storm. I hesitated. What was that deep yearning demanding acknowledgement in my chest? The maternal instinct, raw and unyielding. Okay. Come in, I finally replied, the decision tumbling from my lips before I could fully grasp its weight. As I opened the door, my breath caught. Emma stood there, her form slightly hunched, a shadow of the girl I once knew. Her eyes were wide and glistening, oceanic depths of anxiety swirling beneath the surface. I stepped aside, allowing her to cross the threshold, but not without fear raising its ugly head. When she entered, the silence was thick and heavy, laden with the unsaid words that hung between us like a taut string ready to snap. I wished for the kitchen laughter to return, but it was as if the entire house had known our grief and decided to quiet down as a sign of respect. That I never meant to hurt you, she started, her voice trembling. Tears glimmered in her eyes as if her walls were crumbling, revealing what lay buried beneath her bravado. I thought I was saving us. Saving us? I repeated, disbelief leaking into my tone. Emma, you sold our home, the home filled with memories, with love. How is that saving us? Maggie remained silent, but the tension in the room was palpable. She sat back, an observer caught between history and possibility. I thought maybe if I did that, we could start fresh, Emma confessed, her voice cracking like a fragile glass sculpture. I wanted to make things better, to get away from what was hurting us both. But you didn't think about what it would do to me, I shot back, the sting sharp and bitter. You didn't consider my heart. Mom, I was so lost. I didn't know how to make it better. Every time I tried, it felt like I was making it worse. I thought. She took a deep breath, clenching her fists as though channeling the raw energy churning inside her. I thought if we started anew somewhere else, away from all this pain, it would help. I was torn between the righteous anger of a mother who felt betrayed and the flicker of the hope that maybe, just maybe, she was grasping for something true and good amidst the wreckage. Taking in my daughter, the distance between us felt like a chasm. My heart softened despite my nagging resentment. But you didn't talk to me. You didn't consider what I felt. I know, she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. And I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel this alone. The rawness of her honesty chipped away at my defenses. A sob shook my chest as old memories flickered to life, each one a reminder of our shared laughter that felt like a treasure I feared I might never recover. I'm so afraid, Emma. I'm afraid of losing you completely, I confessed, my voice cracking through her tears. I saw a glimmer of recognition. She took a cautious step toward me, her hands outstretched as if reaching for a lifeline. You won't lose me, Mom. Not like this, she said, her voice steadier now. I want to fix this. But I need you to meet me halfway. In that moment, I glimpsed the fractured reflection of my heart mirrored in her gaze. Hope flickered weakly between us, a fragile bond reformed in the fire of our shared pain. But as her hand brushed against mine, the quiet moment shattered. The doorbell rang sharply, echoing through the tense air, pulling us both back from the brink of reconciliation. What now? I murmured, uneasy, glancing toward the door as a new wave of anxiety washed over me. The sound of voices carried in, crisp and clear. I recognized one, Zane, Emma's friend, and in that instant dread clawed at my heart. Who is it? I asked, panic rising in my throat. I don't know, Emma replied, her eyes darting to the door. Before I could change my mind, I moved to answer it, already dreading what or who might be waiting beyond the entrance to our home. My heart raced as I turned the knob, the uncertainties of motherhood crashing in around me once more. As the door swung open, Zane stood there, his expression grave, and behind him a figure I recognized all too well, one I hadn't seen in years, a specter from the past who now threatened to unravel everything we had just begun to piece together. Time stood still as a new dread settled over the room, filling the air with an unspoken tension that threatened to split our fragile reunion apart. Emma's face blanched, and I knew with chilling certainty that the storm was far from over. The chill from the evening air swept into the room as I stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the ghost that had resurfaced to haunt our fragile truce. Tom, my ex-husband, was there, his presence, a complicated tapestry of nostalgia and pain that unfurled in the corner of my heart. The dark shadows of our past intertwined with the remnants of a love that felt more like a distant memory than a reality I once lived. Tom? My voice was barely a whisper, carried out like a leaf caught in a sudden gust. His once familiar face was lined and weary, the corners of his mouth twisted down into an expression of concern, though I couldn't decipher his intentions. Can we talk? He shifted on his feet, glancing at Emma, then back to me. In private, I looked back at Emma, whose face paled further, layers of panic and regret layered over her features. Mom shouldn't be here, she said, a shake in her voice. The past doesn't change, Emma, I replied, my heart trembling with the weight of the memories washing over me. This was a breach I wasn't ready to face. It just comes back like an uncontrolled tide. Tom stepped forward, invading the moment, his voice steady but gentler than I recalled. I know this isn't easy, but it's important. No, Emma interjected, a fire igniting in her spirit. You don't get to just waltz in here after all this time and pretend everything's okay. Tell me you didn't tell him where to find us, I urged, my pulse racing with the panic of a mother who felt cornered by ghosts of her past. I didn't, Emma stammered, and for a fleeting moment, I saw the girl I raised, the daughter who believed she could control everything if she only tried hard enough. Tom cleared his throat. I came here because I heard some things and I think enough. My voice rose, filled with the anger of years unvoiced, despite the hurt pooling beneath its surface. You're right, the past needs to stay in the past. We fought too hard to rebuild. But as I looked at Emma, her entire demeanor shifted between anger and despair. How much had she known about Tom's visit? Was she still stuck in the quagmire of our history, longing for the family we once had? It wasn't just my pain I had to consider. I also carried her grief. Just listen, please, Tom implored, shifting his attention back to Emma, whose resolve seemed to be weakening. I came to tell you I want to make things right. There's something you need to know, something that could change everything. I could see the flicker of doubt dance in Emma's eyes, a painful tug-of-war between the desire to cling to old love and the need to reject the past. I stepped closer to her, pressing my palm against her back, a silent reminder of my support. No matter what he says, remember why we fought to keep this door closed. Mom, Emma's voice was a whisper, filled with vulnerability. What if this is something important? What if he really wants to start over? Or what if he wants to turn our world upside down all over again? I countered, struggling against my own fear of what Tom could unravel. The air hung thick with unspoken words, the truths and lies swirling like autumn leaves caught in a tempest. And in that moment I realized that even after countless years apart, his presence commanded a strange authority. Had I truly left him behind, or had I merely been avoiding the looming shadow he cast on my life? Emma, Tom pressed, desperation coating his words. Please, you'll want to hear this. I didn't just come here for old wounds. There's something happening that you both need to be aware of, something concerning your future. I instinctively placed myself between them, my heart thundering with the urgency of a mother's instincts. What do you mean? What's so important that it can't wait? Tom hesitated, his gaze dropping to the floor, as though the weight of the truth was a physical burden he couldn't bear anymore. I can't say much here. But my life has shifted dramatically in ways you can't imagine, and I've made some decisions that whatever he was about to reveal was cut off by a sudden ringing of Emma's phone, a shrill interruption that momentarily snapped our attention away from Tom. Emma fumbled through her pocket, her brow furrowing as she glanced at the screen. It's Zane, she said, answering it reluctantly, her voice a mix of anxiety and dread. And that brief moment, all the tension warped and shifted, making space for something utterly unpredictable. Tom's eyes darkened, tracing Emma's expression as it shifted swiftly from confusion to alarm. This can't be happening. Her voice trembled as she paced, her heartbeat measurable in the anxious way she clutched the phone. What do you mean my father is at the police station? I felt the warmth of hope dissipate like smoke in the wind as Emma's words wrapped around my heart like a vice. Zane, wait, what happened? The realization hit me like a thunderclap. Is it Dad? I murmured, but Emma was already pulling away from the conversation, the worry etched deeply across her face. Mom. Emma's voice came low, almost unrecognizable, filled with a weight that sent chills down my spine. She dropped the phone, her hands shaking. He was arrested, it's serious. In that moment time froze. The fragile thread of our tentative reunion frayed, unraveling the hope we had begun to knit together. Behind us, Tom waited, the truth he held back now overshadowed by the urgency of a past that refused to let us go. I felt my own heart shatter underneath the fresh onslaught of fear and uncertainty. Emma, I whispered, stepping toward her, but the world felt unsteady. The fragility of our shared beginnings shattered, leaving only shards of what once was and what we might never become. And as those words hung in the air, I saw the future unfold in slow motion, a darkened path lined with shadows, dragging us deeper into a labyrinth of pain from which we might not emerge. The scars of yesterday seeped through, entwining our fates, and I understood with a sudden terrifying clarity that our journey was just beginning. As the ringing silence enveloped us after Emma's shocking revelation, the air thickened with tension. My chest felt constricted, as if the weight of those words pressed down on me like a heavy cloud. Zane's voice still echoed in her mind, but now it was drowned out by the chaotic symphony of my fears spiraling out of control. "Mom, we need to go." Emma's urgency snapped me back to the present. "Go where?" I asked, my voice vacant, almost incredulous. "To a police station where where my ex-husband might have been arrested." "Emma, I can't do this right now. You just heard from Tom and you need to don't care about Tom." She cut me off, her frustration palpable. "This isn't about him. It's about Dad. He's in trouble and we have to help him." Tom stood in the corner, an observer to our unraveling lives, his expression oscillating between concern for Emma and an unsettling sense of obligation. "Emma's right. We have to figure this out." "Figure what out?" I spat, fighting the rising tide of my exasperation. "Do we just drop everything because your father suddenly needs us? After all the years of silence, all the hurt?" My heart thudded painfully with each word, echoing my internal battle. Did he even deserve my daughter's concern? Or mine? "He's still your father, Mom," Emma replied, her voice cracking, yet fiercely determined. "He may not have been there for us, but he's still part of our lives, intertwined with everything, our past, our present. I can't just walk away, she's right." Tom's voice was softer now, almost pleading. "I've come to realize that sometimes the ties that bind us are beyond our control. If he is in trouble, it could affect both of your lives more than you realize." There was a glimmer of understanding amidst the chaos. Emma's voice blended with Tom's words, outlining the boundless love of a daughter extending beyond broken bonds. Yet I felt myself pulled into a whirlwind, a vortex of grief for the past and anxiety for the uncertain path ahead. Emma ran a trembling hand through her hair, her nerves writhing like exposed wires. "Mom, we have to go. I know he hurt us, but what if he needs us now? What if it's more serious than we think?" The panic in her eyes tugged at my heart. The girl who came into this world full of light had inherited more than my love. She carried the burden of my broken dreams and my fears. I felt the parts of me grate against each other, refusing to reconcile this new reality. Determined, I took a deep breath, my voice steadier than my heart. "Okay, well, go. But I need you to promise me that we won't lose ourselves in this no matter what happens." Emma nodded, her eyes becoming glassy. She stepped forward, reaching out for my hands. "I promise, Mom. I won't let him take us down again." As we grabbed our coats, I caught a glimpse of Tom's fleeting expression, a mixture of hope and regret, like a man who knew had shattered a family and now sought redemption without knowing what it entailed. With one last look at him, I motioned for Emma, and together we stepped out into the cold night air, the chills settling into my bones as I felt the ghosts of our past surrounding us. The drive to the police station was fraught with silence, every heartbeat echoing the pulsating dread within me. Emma was lost in her thoughts, her fingers nervously drumming against her thigh. I could sense the storm brewing inside her, a mixture of hope and anxiety, spinning into oblivion. When we finally arrived, the police station loomed ahead like a foreboding structure, a heavy reminder of decisions made long ago, and the choices that led us here. "Stay close," I instructed, trying to be the anchor in this turbulent emotional sea. But as we crossed the threshold into that suffocating building, the air felt thick, pressing us back against our fears. I felt as though the years of dodging pain had siphoned all the light from my heart, leaving only shadows in their wake. After what felt like eons of waiting, a dull ache settled deep within me. Finding ourselves standing before a stern officer, who informed us of the situation, was like entering a nightmare from which we could not escape. "Your husband was taken in tonight for questioning surrounding a large sum of money allegedly connected to illegal activities," the officer stated, as if the cold, emotionless delivery of reality could dull the impact. Everything spun momentarily, and I staggered, a wave of disbelief coursing through my veins. "What?" I gasped, gripping the edge of the desk for stability. "This can't be. My husband can't be involved with anything illegal. He's just Mom." Emma's whisper reached through the fog as she interlaced her fingers with mine. The urgency in her eyes matched the terror within me. "Do you want to speak with him?" the officer asked, lifting my gaze from the floor to his impassive stare. In that moment 1,000 emotions cascaded over me: fear, anger, sorrow, crushing the foundation of my resolve. Suddenly the path ahead seemed darker than I ever imagined. As Emma squeezed my hand tighter, I felt her silent dread intertwining with my own. I wasn't just battling the reality of my past. I was standing at the edge of a new abyss, where all the decisions I made for our family, where every secret I kept threatened to unravel everything I had fought so hard to protect. "Mom," Emma urged me gently, pulling me back just as I started to sway. But the weight of our uncertain future descended like a shroud, leaving everything I ever wanted deposited in the depths of a shattered heart. "Let's go," I finally managed, choking on the words that slipped past my parched lips, holding on to Emma with a fierce grip as we turned away from an invisible precipice, where hope seemed so far away. The echoes of my past reverberated like a haunting melody in my mind. What if Tom wasn't just a ghost? What if he had found a way back to our lives, the wayward compass of a broken family seeking peace in the ruins of yesterday? But looming questions hung heavy in the air, leaving the sharp edges of our predicament to gash at my resolve. And yet, deep within, I wondered if this unraveling would reveal truths I had buried, secrets both Emma and I might not be ready to face. As we stepped outside into the chilling breeze, I couldn't shake the sense that there was more to this story beneath the surface, waiting to surface a truth that could change everything once again. The night wrapped around us like a suffocating veil, every gust of wind carrying the weight of words unsaid and emotions unexpressed. I could feel the tremors of unease ripple through Emma's fingers as we walked to the car. I wanted to reassure her, to tell her that everything would turn out all right, yet I couldn't shake off the nagging unease coiling in my stomach like a restless serpent. Once inside the car, Emma stared straight ahead, her expression carved from stone, as if she were trying to shield herself from the tide of emotions threatening to engulf her. I, on the other hand, felt raw wound freshly opened, exposing everything I had buried under years of silence and stoicism. I knew we needed to communicate, to find common ground, yet the words were trapped. "The news about Dad. I just can't believe it," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper, trembling lightly as she struggled to maintain composure. "I know, sweetie," I replied, reaching over to cup her cheek, but she flinched slightly, pulling away almost imperceptibly. The gesture stung more than I expected. What if he's really in serious trouble? What if he needs us? Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, capturing my attention, pulling me into her turmoil. It was a mirror reflecting my own fears. "He has a way of getting into trouble, Emma. He always has," I confessed, my voice cracking under the strain of honesty. "But he's still my dad. I have to believe he can change. This time he might need us more than ever." That flicker of hope in her voice was both beautiful and heartbreaking. She was reaching for something I had let go of long ago, the idea that he would emerge from the darkness, ready to embrace a new chapter. But every time I thought of him, the memory swelled to the surface like an angry tide, crashing against my resolve and filling me with uncertainty. The drive back home was insufferably long, each mile extracting another layer of hope and comfort until we were left stranded in this painful limbo. When we finally arrived, I parked in our driveway, which felt strangely foreign. It was our homiest sanctuary marred by the ghosts of our past. "Mom, can we talk about what happened?" Emma asked, breaking the silence. I could see the struggle inside her, the delicate balance between desperation and the fear of losing someone she still cared for. "Not now, please," I answered, my voice weary. "I just need some time to think." As I stepped out of the car, I noticed a flicker of light coming from the porch. Even in the stillness of a quiet night, the illuminated window felt both inviting and foreboding. We had promised ourselves we wouldn't dwell on the past, yet the moment felt far removed from any sense of closure. Inside, the familiar sense of home enveloped me, yet they felt tainted by the departure of all that had been deemed safe. I found myself wandering through the living room, memories cascading over me like fallen leaves. The worn couch, the half-finished board game on the coffee table, remnants of a life that seemed to be slipping away like sand through my fingers. "Mom, are you even listening?" Emma's voice drew me back, piercing through my melancholia. "Yes, I'm sorry. I'm just lost in thought." I could see frustration swelling in her posture. "What do you want to discuss?" I need you to be honest with me, she urged, her voice steady yet revealing the tenderness beneath. Do you still care for him? Are you angry because you still want him? Is that why this hurts so much? The question hung in the air, glaringly present. How could I explain to her that remnants of affection coexisted with layers of resentment? That sometimes the heart leads us into distress? It's complicated, Emma. Love isn't always simple. You know that. No, I don't know that. I don't know anything except that we have so much history with him. A history that you refuse to acknowledge. Her words echoed painfully, slicing through my heart like shards of glass. I felt her disappointment with every syllable. We moved on, Emma. Haven't we? Can't we just put those memories behind us? But what if they're not done with us? She cried, passion flowing unchecked. What if they come back to haunt us? What if we could still build something? It's our choice. My chest tightened at the reality of her words, and a surge of guilt washed over me. Emma held the belief that reconciliation and healing were still within reach, while I only saw the chasm created by his absence, the ache of broken promises. I can't lose you in this, Mom, she whispered, the vulnerability spilling from her words, heavy and unguarded. It was always a risk, the rawness of a family that loved yet feared the connection it depended on. Her statement rattled deep within me. You won't lose me. I'm here, I promise, I finally reassured her, but in a way I was also speaking to myself. Beneath the rubble of past lives I had abandoned, I wanted to believe that love was enough. Just then my phone buzzed, stealing both our attentions. It was a message from Tom, and my fingers hesitated over the screen like a moth drawn to an unwelcome flame. Mom? Emma's voice was barely a whisper, and I could feel her apprehension as I opened the message. It hadn't escaped my attention that Tom was searching desperately for some way to reach out, to weave himself back into our lives, maybe as a father, or a partner once again. But as I read the message, the room felt colder. It was an unexpected request, wanted to meet at a diner on the outskirts of town, a neutral ground of sorts. Confusion twirled with apprehension in my gut, as my heart raced with both anger and trepidation. What does he want? Emma asked, peering over my shoulder. I don't know, but it feels like a trap, I murmured, struggling to contain the whirlwind inside. Maybe he just wants to explain. Don't you want to hear him out? Emma's hopeful gaze lit up, giving her the courage to face whatever shadows still lingered. But the thought of it sent tendrils of dread spiraling through me. I could feel the tides of my life shifting, pulling me into turbulent waters with no visible shore in sight. The past threatened to crush through the fragile peace we had worked to build, undoing everything. Unsure, my heart grappled with an overwhelming pang. A crossroads of choice had arrived. Think about it, I finally managed, a hollow promise hanging between you. As I stood there, paralyzed by uncertainty and emotion, I understood that our lives were on the edge of reckoning. Only time would tell if I would choose to step into that familiar darkness, knowing that each step could bring either reconciliation or destruction. And as Emma's fingers brushed against mine, something profound and unexplainable shifted between us, binding our sorrows and fears, readying us for whatever lay ahead. But little did I know, this moment would be just the beginning, a prelude to revelations that would unearth deeper truths, forever changing our fragile world. The morning sun peeked through the curtains, bathing the living room in a warm golden light that felt in stark contrast to the churning emotions inside me. It had been a sleepless night, riddled with dreams that twisted between memories and fears, leading me in circles with no escape. With every pulse of the morning, the message from Tom loomed large in my mind. I felt it like a rock in my throat, the weight of indecision heavy as I sipped the lukewarm coffee Emma had made. Mom? Emma called from the other room, her voice breaking through my reverie, laced with an urgency I hadn't heard in days. I turned to face her as she stepped cautiously into the kitchen, her face lit with a blend of hope and apprehension. Did you get any sleep? I managed, forcing a smile even as my heart raced. A little. I kept thinking about what you said last night, she murmured, tracing patterns on the wooden countertop. About love and choices. I need to know we'll be okay. Her vulnerability was a fragile tapestry, one that could unravel at any moment. It reminded me how much I feared losing her in all of this, especially as she continued to dangle between hope for her father's redemption and the reality of our fractured past. We will be okay, I promise, I said, though the conviction behind my words wavered, casting shadows of doubt. Maybe we should go meet him, Emma ventured, her brown eyes fierce yet decidedly uncertain. You deserve closure, Mom. Maybe he's changed. Those words hung tantalizingly in the air. A promise of something I had almost given up on. But a flicker of anger surged within me. You really believe that after everything? After how he hurt us? I believe in second chances, she stated, her voice firm but soft. You taught me that. A part of me wanted to recoil from the truth embedded in her assertion. She was right, I had always championed forgiveness. Yet the thought of facing Tom twisted something deep within me. A tangled knot of resentment. Maybe Emma was viewing this through the lens of optimism that only youth could afford, unmarred by the weight of scars that painted my story. It's not that simple, I replied, my words sharper than I intended. You don't understand the mess he created that I do understand. You're scared. And maybe I am too, she admitted. But meeting him could be our way of reclaiming what he tried to take from us. We can't keep running from our past. Her tenacity ignited a flicker of admiration, even while I was terrified at the prospect of dragging her into a confrontation. I wondered, was I making it worse by stifling her dreams of a family connection? Yet, deep in my chest, the pain of betrayal cried louder. Before I could reply, the doorbell rang, jangling through the silence like a call to arms. My heart raced. A fleeting moment of panic overtook the room. Could it be Tom? I hesitated, unsure if I wanted this morning's fragile peace disrupted by the very man whose return threatened to upend everything I had tried to rebuild. Emma's eyes lit up at the sound, and she darted towards the door before I could stop her. "I'll get it," she exclaimed, her eagerness contagious yet unsettling. I followed her hesitantly, aware that I was teetering along the edge of an abyss. When Emma swung open the door, her face morphed from joy to confusion almost instantly. Standing on our porch was Mr. Henderson, our neighbor, his expression a blend of excitement and concern. "Good morning, Emma. I hope I'm not interrupting. I wanted to give your mom this," he said, producing a small envelope. My breath caught, wary of what this communication could entail. With a sense of dread, I took the envelope from him, fingers trembling as I opened it. My heart dropped. Inside was a letter, a handwritten note from Tom. "Mom, what does it say?" Emma whispered, her curiosity piqued, while Mr. Henderson cast a cautious glance at me, sensing the shift in the air. "No, Emma," I said firmly, sensing the chaos bubbling beneath the surface. "You don't need to read this. I just wanted to help," Mr. Henderson stammered. I thought it might be good news. I felt the sting of his kindness offer a momentary balm to my storming emotions, but the unease still surrounded us. "Thank you for stopping by, but we're just fine," I managed tightly, my heart racing with anger that brewed beneath my calm facade. Emma's disappointment pierced through me, like an arrow aimed at my heart. "It's just a letter, Mom. Can't you at least read it?" As I gazed at her hopeful expression, my hand trembled, torn between the temptation to open the letter and the fear of what it could unravel. Would it bring more devastation or a thread of understanding? "I don't want to hear from him, not now. Not ever," I replied, feeling the heat rise in me, while Mr. Henderson shied away back to his safe distance. "Oh, Mom," Emma cried out, her voice raw with frustration and pain. "You need to face this. Running away from him won't bring us peace." The chasm between us widened, the air thick with unrelenting tension. My pulse quickened, caught in a cyclone of desperation. The depth of her understanding felt like an immovable landmark on a shoreline eroding with waves of anguish. As I turned away, the letter felt heavy in my grasp, and I nearly let it slip from my fingers, but the weight of it pulled me back. I couldn't help but look down at the scrawl, the words barely visible against my shaking hands. It felt as if the envelope was filled with the ghosts of our past, one that sought to ensnare us once more. "I am not ready, Emma. Just not ready," I managed, the raw emotion cutting through the air. But as Emma's frustration poured forth, I could feel the truth of my own regrets coiling back. All the things I never voiced pressing against my chest like a bitter revelation. In a final desperate moment, Emma pressed her hand against the letter. "Then let's do this together." I hesitated, staring into her eyes, which trembled with countless feelings: fear, hope, and an unwavering determination. In that moment, despair transformed into a flickering fire of possibility as I wondered if the lines separating forgiveness from hurt could blur just a little, allowing us space to breathe. Before I could respond, a text notification buzzed from my phone. Heart racing once more, I reached for it, holding my breath as I read Tom's message again. I have something important to tell you. It concerns Emma. Time froze, pulsating with impending calamity, and I felt my world shift once again. Emma's gaze held mine wide and searching, and I knew I had just stepped into a storm where the decision waiting ahead could either drown us or set us free. The day unfurled with a tension that draped over us like an unshakable fog. I couldn't focus on the chaos swirling in my mind as Emma fidgeted beside me, her eyes darting between the phone and my face, searching for answers. What does he mean, Mom? What could he possibly need to tell us? What could possibly be so important? Words failed me. My insides churned like a storm-torn sea, threatening to spill over, drowning in the turmoil of fear and sorrow. I don't know, I finally whispered, my voice barely cutting through the thick, suffocating air. Yet even as I spoke, I could feel my resolve crumbling. It's probably just a ploy to get closer again, a way to sink his claws back into our lives. But deep down, one small part of me yearned for clarity, to understand what haunted Tom, what had driven him to send this message at such an odd hour. My hands trembled as I typed out a response, my heart beating out a desperate rhythm against my ribcage. Can we meet? I sent, my thumb hovering over the screen as if it were a lifeboat tossed about on tumultuous waters. The minuscule hope that there might be a way to untangle our lives held me captive, even while my heart insisted it was a fool's errand. The need for answers loomed far larger than my fear of old wounds reopening. Emma's breath had caught again, her small hand clutching the edge of the counter as if it were the only solid ground left. What are you thinking? I have to know why he wants to meet, I murmured, the words spilling out into the emptiness around us. It may not be about us at all. But what if it is? What if it tears us apart all over again? Her voice quavered, the intensity of our shared emotions filling the air until it vibrated with possibility. The moment draped heavy between us, broken only by the beep of the message notification. My stomach lurched as I looked again at my phone, scanning Tom's response. Tomorrow at 3. The old coffee shop on 12 Teach. Before I could ponder what I was getting myself into, the doorbell rang again. The sound struck a dissonant note in the symphony of my heart, and I felt an inexplicable sense of dread wash over me. Could it be another unexpected visitor? Or worse, was it Tom, already showing up to dig into our wounds? I nodded toward Emma, my expression a silent plea for her to sit tight as I approached the door with caution. Opening it, I didn't fully expect the sight of Sarah, my dear friend from years past. She stood there, her familiar face flushed with warmth mixed with concern, clutching a small bag of groceries. Hi. I thought I'd drop by and check on you too, she said brightly, though her eyes mirrored my own underlying anxiety. I brought some snacks and maybe some wine? I figured you might need it. Her unflagging kindness wrapped around me, a thin shade of hope brightening the cobwebbed corners of my heart. But in my throat, regret tightened as I realized I hadn't confided in her about the turmoil that stirred within our family. Sarah, it's not a good time, I responded. My voice clipped as I stepped aside to let her in, but not wanting her to usher in even more questions. Karen, come on. You look like you haven't slept in days, she pressed gently, brushing my shoulder as she stepped inside, her unmistakable warmth radiating through the dim light of the room. What's going on? Emma hovered near the living room entrance, her expression a mixture of relief and renewed fear. Mom's having a freakout about Dad. Oh, Sarah said softly, understanding dawning on her. I'm here if you want to talk. It's exhausting to put emotions into words when they feel so jagged and heavy. We've been dealing with a lot. I shifted uncomfortably, biting back the tide of feelings clawing for release. You don't have to carry the world on your shoulders, Sarah said, her tone a calm harbor against the tempest. Whatever it is, you can share it with me. I felt tears prick at my eyes, warmed by the sentiment yet stinging with the truth I had so long pushed away. Tom contacted me. Wants to meet tomorrow. The words fell out like stones from a pocket. The air shifted, thickening around. I could feel Emma stiffening beside me, her eyes wide with disbelief. Mom, you can't, she protested, and I could hear the tremor of fear in her voice. We don't know if we want him back in our lives. That I don't want him back in my life either, I retorted, a wave of frustration rising up. It was an overwhelming yearning for both closure and hope colliding within me. With an apologetic glance, Sarah placed a gentle hand on my arm, urging me to take a breath. This is your decision, Karen. You need to do what feels right for you. But remember, whatever you choose, you won't be alone. As we stood there, bulwarks of hope entwined with uncertainty, the chime of the clock on the wall ticked its solemn rhythm, counting down the moments until I stepped into that coffee shop. And unbeknownst to me, each second edged me closer to a revelation that would reveal truths deeper than I ever could have imagined. A sudden ding from my phone startled me. I picked it up, and my heart sank as I read Tom's final message. "I'm sorry for everything. I need to tell you about your mother." Emma gasped as she peered over my shoulder, her eyes now wide with disbelief. "Mom, what does that mean?" That one line shattered the fragile wall I'd built to keep us safe. A new fear spiraling out of control. The weight of generations of secrets and lies pressed down upon us, and I was left gasping for air, standing at a precipice I could have never anticipated. The sun dipped into a twilight haze, slanting long shadows across the room and amplifying the weight of Tom's words. My hands trembled as I set the phone down, each heartbeat echoing the fracturing silence. Emma stood frozen, a deer caught in headlights, her innocence trembling in the face of a reality I had tried so desperately to shield her from. "What does he mean about Grandma?" she asked, breaking the silence, her voice laced with unease. My heart twisted at the mention of my mother, the fierce matriarch whose presence had felt like both a fortress and a prison in my childhood. Memories of her sharp words and comforting embrace cut through the fog of my thoughts. "I don't know, Emma," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady as I tried to drown out the chaos within me. "But it can't be good. It's just manipulation, Mom. That's what he does. He tries to lure you in with guilt," Emma insisted, her grip tightening on the edge of the counter until her knuckles turned white. "We can't just let him mess with us again." A wave of guilt washed over me, mingled with the ingrained need to protect my daughter at all costs. "You're right. I know. It's just," I faltered, the weight of the past creeping back in. "I've never confronted the truth about him or anything that happened with my family. Maybe it's time I did." Sarah's hand rested lightly on my shoulder, grounding me as I fought against the rising tide of unease. "You don't have to do this alone. We can face whatever he has to say together. Remember that, Karen." I in that moment, despite the spine-chilling words from Tom, a flicker of warmth ignited within the chasm of darkness that surrounded me. A small reminder of the love and support that enveloped Meth's steadfast friendship that already survived countless storms. "What if it's something worse?" Emma whispered, a fragile tremor in her voice. "What if he just wants to hurt us? Why now?" I couldn't answer her. The uncertainty of that very question gnawed at my gut. The room filled with that awful silence again, thick with apprehension, as the clock ticked ominously towards a meeting that now felt inevitable. In an attempt to assuage the overwhelming tension, I pushed my insecurities aside and plastered on a brave smile. "Hey, let's not think the worst. Maybe he needs to tell me he's finally found peace, that he's ready to apologize." The facade felt flimsy, yet I clung to it. Emma's eyes narrowed, skepticism etched on her face. "Mom, this isn't a Hallmark movie. You know it's going to be messy." Before I could respond, Sarah switched gears, her voice warm and calming against the backdrop of uneasy feels. "How about some distraction while we're here? Let's whip up something together, your favorite nachos and maybe some of that wine after." "Can I help?" Emma perked up, the idea of cooking serving as a welcome reprieve from the heaviness that had enveloped us. "Of course. Let's turn this around a bit," I said, moving toward the kitchen, grateful for this small sliver of brightness in an otherwise grim day. But even as I joined them, laughter bubbling as we prepared our snacks, the looming dread clung to the edges of my thoughts like a shroud. The three of us worked seamlessly, our voices rising and falling in familiar cadence, but every chop of the vegetables echoed in my mind, a relentless reminder of the simmering storm. As Emma melted the cheese, her smile carrying the infectious energy of youthful optimism, I found myself momentarily lost in the simplicity of the task. Perhaps all I needed was to embrace the love around Met, his found family, before I reconnected with the one from my past. And then at last the nachos were ready. We piled them high, drizzling salsa and sour cream until the plate overflowed with colors and flavors. "Now let's dig in," I said, kicking the shadows back for just one evening. Yet as we gathered at the table, their laughter enveloping me like a warm embrace, my mind flickered back to Tom's cryptic message. It was there, the unfinished thread slowly unraveling in the back of my mind, building, until the inevitable confrontation loomed large. Moments Later, just as the relief began to settle, my phone buzzed once more. My heart plummeted. Karen, you remember what I told you about your mother's past? There's something you don't know. Something that changes everything. This time, a sharp gasp escaped my lips, and Emma's eyes bore into mine, the unspoken fear ignited. Mom, what is it? I stood paralyzed, the weight of Tom's words wrapping around me like chains, each letter a reflection of an unknown truth hidden in our family's history. As the world around us faded to silence, hope and dread collided in a deafening cacophony, and I was left teetering on the edge of a revelation that threatened to shatter everything I thought I understood. The next day came with the unease of a storm brewing just beneath the surface, the sky streaked with clouds that mirrored my tangled feelings. My phone vibrated like a live wire in my pocket, each notification sending my heart racing with dread. The anticipation was unnerving. The weight of Tom's message clung to me like an ever-present shadow. Are you okay, Mom? Emma's voice broke through my swirling thoughts as we sat in silence over breakfast. She pushed her plate away untouched, her once vibrant spirit shadowed by apprehension. I'm fine. Just thinking, I replied as I wiped my clammy hands on my jeans, desperately trying to maintain a facade of calmness. I had promised Harris that we would ensure we didn't lose each other through this ordeal. But every moment leading up to our meeting felt like walking a tightrope, with the churning emotions threatening to tumble us far down into the chasm of our shared past. What if we don't go? She asked softly, her eyes searching mine. We can just forget about him. I don't think he has any right to come back. My heart twisted painfully at Emma's words. Deep within her lay the same heartache I felt. It was like staring into a mirror reflecting my own fears. It's too late for that, darling. We have to face this, for better or worse, I murmured. Feeling the weight of the world rest heavily upon my shoulders, she considered my words, her brow furrowed in thought before nodding slowly. I just don't want to lose you again. And you won't, I promised, reaching out to envelope her small hand with mine, grounding us both in shared warmth before I drew away, each heartbeat an echo of my love. As the clock ticked closer to 3 p.m., the air pulsed with unspoken words, anxieties dancing between us in a whirlwind of tension. Finally, the moment arrived and we pushed open the door, stepping into that world once again, the old coffee shop, a place that once held laughter dissolved into bitterness over the shards of our relationship. Time felt suspended as we entered the familiar surroundings, and the smell of roasted coffee beans filled my lungs, filled me with wild nostalgia I didn't want to lose. I spotted Tom immediately, his familiar silhouette silhouetted against the window. Yet he felt like a stranger, his shoulders weighed down under the gravity of shared history. Our lives had taken different paths, and though he still bore a resemblance to the man I once knew, there was a deep hollowness within him that signaled years of separation and scars far deeper than my own. Karen, he said, his voice a brittle whisper. I couldn't see the disdain I'd expected in his eyes. Instead, there was something softer: fear, regret, perhaps even remorse. Tom. The word slipped from my lips unceremoniously. Emma stood slightly behind me, her presence a reminder of all that had been lost and what still had the potential to be. You wanted to talk? My voice was steadier than I felt, but inside my resolve wavered like a candle in the wind. He nodded, a flicker of emotion dancing across his face. Thank you for coming. I know it's not easy, but I have things I need to explain. I glanced at Emma, whose eyes roamed the room before settling back on me. The unspoken bond we shared felt both tenuous and unbreakable all at once. Encouraged, we both took seats across from him, a table separating our past from this uncertain future. What do you want to say? I asked, my voice steady as I prepared for any revelation he might unleash. With a deep breath, he glanced around, searching for the right words. It's about your mother, he began, leaning closer, his urgency palpable. There are things you don't know, truths about our family. I never meant for you to find out this way. I held my breath, the realization dawning heavy and ominous. What could he possibly reveal that would change the course of my life yet again? Emma's grip on my hand tightened, both of us drawn into this whirlwind, caught like moths to a flame. Mom, she whispered, we don't have to listen to him. But I shook my head lightly, a premonition pulling me forward. Please, Tom. Just tell me. My bravado wavered, replaced by palpable curiosity fighting through the dread. I found something, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Something your mother kept hidden, ways that He paused, biting his lip as though wrestling his own thoughts. Ways she manipulated us to keep control. A flood of emotions surged within me, confusion, anger and pain bursting forth like a dark cloud threatening to consume us all. What does that mean? I demanded, desperate to grasp the strings of this new reality. She was involved in secrets I thought had died with her. There were things she did. Money laundering, shadows in our lives that we could never escape. Each word felt like a blow, and for a moment the room spun, locking me into place. The nostalgia began to rot. Memories of laughter and old family arguments twisted into a nightmare I had never lived. Why are you just saying this now? I accused him, the betrayal coiling tightly around my heart, stinging with the weight of unfulfilled trust. I didn't know until recently myself. I thought everything was fine until things fell apart. I realized I had to tell you or risk losing all of you to the demon she drowned in. He pleaded, pain flickering across his features as he spoke. I could sense Emma's silent terror growing, her worst fears coming to life before us, threatening to drive us apart as it had done all those years ago. I could feel her trembling near me, the roots of our relationship once again hanging in the balance, exposed to the undercurrents of our shared history. Is this true? Emma asked, her voice mere breath as she looked at me, the knowledge illuminating her face with dread. What else does he know? Enough, I snapped, flaring with emotion. I don't even know what I believe anymore. Tom reached forward, but I flinched instinctively, my body coiling away from him. Karen, I still care about you. You and Emma, I want you to be safe. Safe? You have no grasp on that word, I replied, the resentment bubbling to the surface. My heart ached with the realization that he had blindsided me, expecting empathy when all I felt was betrayal. Why should I trust anything you say? Suddenly, something deep within me cracked open. A rush of recognition that perhaps I had misunderstood the depths of our relationship long before everything had splintered into chaos. As Tom's face reflected sorrow and regret, I felt a glimmer of understanding stirring within the haunting echo of my mother's control, the chaos she infused into our lives that had left us all broken. That's what she always did, though, I whispered. She twisted the narrative to control everything. I could feel it even as a child. A wave of realization crashed over me, flooding my thoughts with the threads of authenticity tangled with my desire for love, acceptance, and the need to also protect my daughter. I can't rewrite the past, Tom said softly, his voice breaking slightly. But if you let me, I want to help you see the truth. Under everything, there's still a chance for us to heal together. Your life, your legacy, Karen. You deserve to know. I inhaled sharply, the revelation dawning on me. Perhaps the darkness could be transformed, the shadows illuminated with light and possibility if we moved forward together, freeing ourselves from the lies that had bound us all. It flickered within the chaos, a small flame waiting to be kindled, but would it be enough? Could time once lost be reclaimed, forged into a bond as unyielding as the love I felt for Emma? Just as the remnants of the past began to unfold, the clatter of a cup falling disrupted the uncertainty, sending my heart racing. I turned, eyes meeting Emma's fear-laden gaze. Mom, she said, her voice wavering. Whatever the truth is, we need to stick together. The words crashed over me like the tide, compelling me to forge forward. You're right, Emma, I declared, steeling myself. Sensing the raw emotions surging beneath our shared surface, love entwined with scars, fear salvaged in hope, I looked back at Tom with newfound determination. Listen, Tom. I'll hear you out, but I will not allow you to drag us into a dark abyss again. His nod of understanding suggested the possibility of reconciliation, a glimpse into a world where healing resided. As we sat in that coffee shop, the clattering dishes, reverberating laughter surrounding us, I grasped the infinitesimal hope laced within our ordeal. And yet the road ahead remained treacherous and uncertain, a journey filled with promises and shadows that demanded courage. At that moment, between Tom's tentative truth and Emma's striving heart, I felt a flicker of connection ignite within. It wouldn't be easy, but this time we would emerge painted not with chaos but with resilience together. And amidst the chaos, in that coffee shop shaped by the memories of yesterday, I understood that rebuilding our lives wouldn't be done in silence or solitude. As long as we allowed ourselves the grace of forgiveness, acceptance, and love, perhaps we would find peace leaving the into the unknown. Together, I echoed softly, my heart swelling as I squeezed Emma's hand once more, ready to meet whatever unfinished chapters lay ahead. As Tom began to speak of the pasta rabble of tangled truths, the horizon shifted, hinting a world wrapped in shades of personal growth, lost but not forgotten. And from the rising warmth of our connection forged through turmoil, I finally felt a whisper of hope that reminded me that strength lies not just in forgiving others, but in forgiving myself as well.